believe what I just saw?
October 23rd, 1993. Bottom of the ninth, Game 6 of the 1993 World Series. The Philadelphia Phillies clung to a 6-5 lead against the defending champion Toronto Blue Jays. With one out on the scoreboard and runners on first and second, the Phillies were on the verge of sending the series to a decisive Game 7. Mitch Williams, nicknamed Wild Thing, steps onto the mound. The count, 2-2 to Joe Carter. The tension is palpable. The pitch, a fastball, down and in. One swing, one pitch, one city's heartbreak. The ball rockets over the left field wall for a game-winning 3-run home run. The Toronto Blue Jays are back-to-back World Series champions, sealing an 8-6 victory. And in an instant, Mitch Williams becomes an enduring symbol of a Philadelphia sports tragedy. How did the flamboyant closer of the 1993 Phillies miracle season, the man who earned the nickname Wild Thing for his electric personality and sometimes erratic control, become the name that still makes grown men wince more than 30 years later? This is the story of baseball's thinnest line between immortality and infamy. Before he became Philadelphia sports' most tragic figure, Mitch Williams was one of MLB's most captivating relievers. The nickname Wild Thing wasn't just clever marketing, it was a perfect description of both his pitching style and his impact on fans' cardiac health. Williams' delivery was chaos in motion, a violent, twisting catapult that sent his body flying toward third base while the ball headed, somewhere near home plate. His mechanics were so unorthodox that hitters often had no idea where the pitch was going. Neither did Williams, half the time. The numbers tell the story. From 1986 to 1993, Williams saved 186 games, walking 492 batters in 652 innings. Every appearance was a high-wire act without a net with 93 miles per hour fastballs that might find the corner or might find the backstop. But there was an undeniable magic to his madness. While conventional closers prided themselves on precision, Williams embraced baseball's inherent drama. He didn't just close games, he turned them into theater. As Williams himself once put it, "I pitch like my hair's on fire." For fans, watching him work was like riding a roller coaster without a safety harness. Terrifying, exhilarating, and impossible to look away from. When the Philadelphia Phillies traded for Mitch Williams before the '91 season, they weren't just acquiring a closer. They were importing a personality that would either mesh perfectly with the city or blow up spectacularly. Philadelphia, a blue-collar town with little patience for pretension but infinite love for authenticity, sized up the wild-eyed 26-year-old immediately. Here was a closer who didn't have the polish of a Lee Smith or the dominance of a Dennis Eckersley. What he had was guts, an unhittable slider when it worked, and a willingness to take the ball every single night. His first season with the Phillies was great. 30 saves, a .234 ERA, but 92 brought the first taste of Philadelphia's infamous tough love. His ERA rose to .378, and the boos rained down from Veterans Stadium. Williams, to his credit, never hid from accountability. "If I pitch bad, I deserve to get booed," he told reporters. "These fans pay good money to see good baseball." By the spring of '93, Williams had reached a crossroads. The Phillies had finished dead last in '92. Expectations for the '93 campaign hovered somewhere between mediocre and slightly less terrible. For a 28-year-old closer with dwindling job security, the upcoming season represented what could be his final chance at redemption. No one, not Williams, not the Phillies, certainly not Philadelphia, could have predicted what was about to unfold. The '93 Philadelphia Phillies weren't just a baseball team, they were a glorious contradiction to everything Major League Baseball was becoming in the early '90s. While the sport was growing increasingly corporate, the Phillies clubhouse resembled a biker bar after midnight. At the heart of this beautiful mess was Macho Row, the unkept, unfiltered core of John Kruk, Darren Daulton, Lenny Dykstra, Dave Hollins, and Pete Incaviglia. These weren't athletes, they were characters escaped from a baseball comic book. Kruk famously declared, "I'm not an athlete, lady. I'm a baseball player." This was a team of mullets and mustaches, beer bellies, and chewing tobacco. Dykstra looked like he just crawled out from under a car. Kruk resembled a bouncer at a roadhouse. And in the bullpen, with his flowing locks and wild delivery, Mitch Williams fit right in. What made this collection of misfits special wasn't just their appearance or their personalities. it was their strange, undeniable chemistry. Manager Jim Fregosi somehow channeled their chaos into cohesion. They played hard, partied harder, and brought a genuine joy to the game that connected deeply with Philadelphia's soul. When the '93 Phillies jumped out to a surprising start, winning 19 of their first 25 games, baseball insiders waited for the inevitable collapse. Instead, they kept winning, riding an unorthodox lineup and unexpected pitching performances to the top of the NL East. And at the back end of the bullpen, the Wild Thing was about to have the season of his life. As the '93 season progressed, the Phillies' improbable success became the talk of baseball. For Mitch Williams, it marked a career renaissance. His numbers tell only part of the story: 43 saves and a .334 ERA. What they don't capture is the white-knuckle experience of watching him pitch. A typical Mitch Williams save in '93. Enter with a one-run lead. Walk the first batter on 4 pitches nowhere near the strike zone. Pick off the runner at first. Strike out the next batter on 3 pitches that look unhittable. Walk another batter on pitches that miss by feet, not inches. Load the bases with marathon long at bats, and then somehow induce a fielder's choice ground out to first. Mitch made sure fans got their money's worth. A true performer. Phillies broadcaster Harry Callis captured the Wild Thing experience perfectly. He's not boring, folks. He's never boring. What made Williams so endearing was his honesty. After particularly adventurous saves, he'd admit to reporters, "I didn't have my best stuff today. Actually, I didn't have any stuff." There was no pretense, no athlete speak. Just a man doing a high-pressure job the only way he knew how, on the edge of disaster. As summer turned to fall and the Phillies maintained their division lead, Williams became a legitimate star in Philadelphia. His 43 saves set a franchise record, and he successfully converted a high percentage of his save opportunities, despite rarely making it look easy. The Wild Thing was harnessing his chaos just enough, and the 1993 Phillies were riding it all the way to October. The 1993 National League Championship Series presented a David versus Goliath matchup for the ages. The upstart Phillies against the Atlanta Braves, a powerhouse with Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and baseball's most feared pitching staff. Nobody outside of Pennsylvania gave Philadelphia a chance. Game 1 set the tone for the series. The Phillies held a lead before the Braves tied it in the top of the 9th, aided by a Kim Batiste error. In the bottom of the 10th inning, Batiste, at the plate, hits a hard grounder down the third baseline, just out of the reach of Pendleton. Kruk, trucking along from second, scores, giving the Phillies a 4-3 win and a 1-0 series lead. After decisive beatings in Games 2 and 3 at the hands of Atlanta, Game 4 was a tightly contested pitching duel. The Phillies scored 2 unearned runs in the 4th inning to take a 2-1 lead. Williams entered in the 9th inning to close out the game. He allowed the first 2 batters to reach base in typical Mitch Williams fashion, but then induced a game-ending double play from Ron Gant to secure the save and tie the series at 2-2. Game 5 was another nail-biter. The Phillies held a 3-0 lead entering the bottom of the 9th inning before Williams came in to relieve Curt Schilling. After an RBI single and a sacrifice fly, Williams gave up a single to tie the game at 3-3, blowing the save. However, Williams regrouped and escaped the inning with the bases loaded. Lenny Dykstra then hit a leadoff home run in the top of the 10th to put the Phillies ahead, and Larry Anderson closed out the game for the win. The Phillies clinched the series in Game 6 at Veterans Stadium. Darren Daulton and Dave Hollins provided key hits, including a bases-loaded double and a 2-run home run. Williams pitched the 9th inning, recording the final out to secure the pennant for the Phillies. This appearance earned him his second save of the series, erasing his Game 5 blunder in the eyes of fans. For now. For Mitch, the NLCS represented personal vindication. After the struggles of 1992, he had helped pitch Philadelphia to the pinnacle of the National League. In the celebration that followed, Williams was at the center, soaked in champagne, his wild hair plastered to his face, grinning like a man who had silenced every doubt. Nobody knew that baseball had a cruel twist waiting just around the corner. The 1993 World Series matched the Philadelphia Phillies against the defending champion Toronto Blue Jays, a powerhouse lineup featuring Roberto Alomar, Paul Molitor, John Olerud, and Joe Carter. The Blue Jays had the experience. The Phillies had the momentum. Game 1 set the tone, proving that this would be an evenly matched series, a game featuring Curt Schilling on the bump for the Phillies and Juan Guzman for the Jays. With several lead changes throughout the contest, the Blue Jays ended up extending their lead in the 7th, scoring 3 insurance runs off reliever David West, including an RBI double by White and a 2-run double by Roberto Alomar, making the score 8-4. The Phillies scored a run in the 9th, but fell short, with Dwayne Ward closing the game for the Blue Jays. The Phillies bounced back in Game 2, winning 6-4 behind Jim Eisenreich's 3-run home run. Williams earned the save, securing the Phillies' victory and evening the series at 1 game apiece. The series shifted to Veterans Stadium for Games 3, 4, and 5. After Toronto took Game 3 with a dominant 10-3 win, the Phillies faced a pivotal Game 4. This game became the highest scoring in World Series history. Williams was called in but endured a disastrous outing, giving up 5 runs, including a 2-run triple to Devin White that gave the Blue Jays a 15-14 lead they wouldn't relinquish. He was tagged with the loss, and Toronto took a 3-1 series lead. Game 5 brought new life for the Phillies as Curt Schilling pitched a complete game shutout in a crucial 2-0 victory. This cut Toronto's series lead to 3-2, sending the teams back to Canada. As the Phillies packed for Canada, Williams remained confident despite his uneven performances. "It's just another game," he told reporters. "I've been in pressure situations all year." What no one could know was that Game 6 would become one of the most memorable, and for Philadelphia, most painful finales in World Series history. As the Phillies took an early lead in the must-win game, Mitch Williams warmed up in the bullpen, preparing for what would become the defining moment of his career. In Philadelphia, fans who had lived and died with every Wild Thing appearance all season prepared for one more high-wire act. The stage was set for baseball immortality, one way or another. October 23, 1993, Game 6 of the World Series in the Skydome in Toronto. The Phillies mounted a 5-run rally in the top of the 7th inning, taking a 6-5 lead, highlighted by Lenny Dykstra's 3-run homer. This set the stage for one of the most dramatic endings in World Series history. With the Phillies clinging to a 6-5 lead in the bottom of the 9th, manager Jim Fregosi faced the decision every baseball fan in Philadelphia was debating in real time. Who should pitch the 9th inning? Mitch Williams had been struggling throughout the World Series, walking 6 batters in 4.2 innings. His command, always adventurous, seemed particularly elusive on baseball's biggest stage. The bullpen phone rang. Despite the concerns, despite the walks, despite everything, Fregosi was giving the ball to his closer. The Wild Thing would have a chance to send the 1993 World Series to Game 7. The bottom of the 9th began with Rickey Henderson, one of baseball's most disciplined leadoff hitters. Williams, taking his time on each pitch, walked Henderson on 4 straight pitches, because that's just how the Wild Thing gets down. The potential tying run was on base with nobody out. Williams then takes Devon White to a 3-2 count, but gets him to fly out to left center for the first out of the 9th. But then, Paul Molitor, the future Hall of Famer, singled sharply to center. Runners at first and second, 1 out. And now, stepping into the batter's box, was Joe Carter. The Blue Jays cleanup hitter just had to put 1 in the gap to drive in the winning run. Joe Carter, being 0 for 3 for the night and 0 for 4 against Williams' lifetime, was about to crush souls. As Carter dug in, the Skydome vibrated with noise. In Philadelphia, an entire city collectively held its breath. The count would eventually reach 2 balls and 2 strikes. What happened next would become one of the most iconic moments in baseball history, and the most painful in Philadelphia sports memory. The 2-2 pitch from Mitch Williams to Joe Carter deserves frame-by-frame analysis, not just for its historical significance, but for the cascade of small decisions that led to baseball immortality. Williams peered in for the sign from catcher Darren Daulton. The battery mates agreed on the pitch. After getting Carter to chase a slider low and inside, the next pitch appears to be a fastball low and in. What happens next is history. Carter yanks the fastball down the left field line and brings another World Series championship to Toronto. Carter's swing was compact and powerful. The connection was pure. The ball rose on a line toward left field, carrying. Williams turned immediately, tracking the flight of the ball. From his reaction, a slight slump of the shoulders, he knew. As the ball cleared the wall, Blue Jays announcer Tom Cheek delivered the call that would become baseball legend.
That's the ball, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Just like that, with 1 swing, 1 pitch, the Toronto Blue Jays were World Series champions again. Joe Carter leaped around the bases in ecstasy, arms raised in triumph. The Sky Dome erupted in celebration, and Mitch Williams stood on the mound, the loneliest man in baseball. In seconds, he had transformed from potential hero to permanent scapegoat. The Wild Things high wire act had finally, devastatingly, resulted in a fall. As Joe Carter was mobbed at home plate by his Toronto teammates, the cameras caught Mitch Williams walking slowly, head down, toward the Phillies dugout. No teammates approached him. No words were spoken. The stunned silence of the Philadelphia bench told the entire story. In the visitors' clubhouse, reporters crowded around Williams' locker. To his immense credit, he didn't hide. He answered every question with the same honesty that had endeared him to Philadelphia when times were good. "I threw a bad pitch to a good hitter, and he did what he gets paid to do," Williams said. "I'm the one who has to live with it." The flight back to Philadelphia was described by team members as funeral-like. A season of exceeded expectations and joy had ended in the cruelest possible fashion. For the fans waiting at Veterans Stadium to welcome their team home, the disappointment was palpable, but so was the pride in what the 1993 Phillies had accomplished. For Williams, however, the nightmare was just beginning. In the days following the World Series, he received death threats, some of which had begun after his struggles in Game 4. Eggs were thrown at his house, and security details were posted outside his home in New Jersey. The Wild Thing, once the embodiment of Philadelphia's scrappy spirit, had become a pariah in the city he had helped lift to unexpected heights. Teammate Danny Jackson later recalled, "The way Mitch was treated was unfair. We wouldn't have even been in the World Series without him, but people only remember the last thing. That's sports." As the immediate shock faded, a deeper question emerged. Could Mitch Williams ever take the mound for Philadelphia again? Could the relationship between closer and city be repaired? Or was one pitch, one moment, enough to sever the bond permanently? All of it compressed in baseball memory to a single misplaced fastball. Philadelphia's relationship with Williams evolved in complicated ways over the years. The initial anger gave way to something more nuanced, a recognition that sports heartbreak is the inevitable counterweight to sports joy. The 1993 Phillies, with all their rough edges and unlikely success, remain beloved in city lore despite the ending. Williams himself handled the aftermath with remarkable grace. "I never ran from it," he said years later. "It happened. I made a bad pitch, but it doesn't define my career or my life." Perhaps the most telling measure of Williams' character came during a 2008 interview when asked if he ever watched replays of the Carter home run. "Why would I? I don't need to see it. I can still see it in my mind every day." For Philadelphia baseball fans of a certain age, they can still see it too. One swing, one pitch, one moment when baseball's razor-thin line between immortality and infamy revealed itself in the cruelest possible fashion. Time has a way of healing even the deepest sports wounds. As the years passed, Mitch Williams found a second life in baseball as an analyst and commentator. Philadelphia, too, found its baseball redemption when the Phillies captured the 2008 World Series, their first championship since 1980. Williams has returned to Philadelphia for various events over the years, often receiving warm receptions, a far cry from the vitriol of 1993. The passage of time allowed for perspective. The Wild Thing was never the villain some made him out to be in the emotional aftermath of Carter's home run. He was simply a pitcher who threw a bad pitch at the worst possible moment. The 93 Philadelphia Phillies have taken on a special place in baseball lore, perhaps the last great one-year wonder in MLB history. Their collection of misfits, led by Kruk, Dykstra, Dalton, and Williams, represented something authentic in a sport that was becoming increasingly polished and corporate. Baseball historians often point to the 93 Phillies as a team that couldn't exist in today's game. The mullets, the bellies, the chewing tobacco, the "we're not athletes" mentality, all of it belongs to a different era. Perhaps that's why the team's memory endures so strongly, even with its heartbreaking finish. Sports heartbreaks linger because they represent something genuine, the authentic, emotional investment fans make in their teams. The Carter home run hurts Philadelphia fans decades later precisely because the 1993 Phillies meant so much. Without the love, there could be no heartbreak. For Mitch Williams, the journey from scapegoat to respected baseball figure represents a kind of redemption. He never hid from his moment. He never blamed others. He accepted responsibility and moved forward with dignity. exactly the qualities Philadelphia admires most. One pitch can change everything in baseball. One decision, one moment, one swing. The difference between celebration and devastation is often measured in inches. Mitch Williams' story reminds us of the razor-thin line every athlete walks between hero and scapegoat. Had his fastball been placed differently, had Carter swung differently, baseball history would tell a completely different story. The 1993 Phillies might be remembered as champions rather than beloved almosts. Yet there's something uniquely powerful about sports heartbreak, the shared experience of collective disappointment that binds generations of fans together. When Philadelphia fans gather to discuss their baseball memories, the 1993 Phillies and Mitch Williams inevitably enter the conversation, not with anger, but with a wistful "what if?" Perhaps that's the ultimate legacy of the Wild Thing and his fateful pitch, not as a villain in Philadelphia sports history, but as a chapter in the city's ongoing love affair with a game where joy and heartbreak are always just one pitch apart. If this journey through one of baseball's most heartbreaking chapters stirred something in you, hit that like button. If you want more deep dives into MLB's most unforgettable moments, the triumphs and the tragedies, subscribe and join our community of fans who understand that sports are about more than just wins and losses. Thanks for watching.